Thank you. Thank you.
Have a seat. Okay. So, well, Tony and I have been friends for quite a few years. It's been a while, and I've always wanted to be able to get your story and really find out how this whole thing started. So, Tony is the founder of Joseph Industries, and we'll let him tell us what all that is. But before that, I want to ask you. You know, in the United States, we do lemonade stands when we're kids. So, when you were a kid or a young man, what do you have in your background that would have been your lemonade stand?
Well, first, thanks for inviting me to your event, and I'm very happy to be here and to share my story. Lemonade stand, that's interesting. Well, you mentioned the U.S. I was not born in the U.S., so I didn't have a lemonade stand per se in the U.S. But my parents that owned a retail store that sold candy, that made their own candy and sold that. And then my father's father, my great-grandfather, he also had a business, a bar and lumber yard. So my lemonade stand is sort of genetics of business from the family, working in their store, making the candy as a 7-year-old, 6-year-old, seeing that business operate, not knowing anything about business, but just seeing business and doing business. And then when we immigrated, I was 8 years old from Guyana, that still stuck in me. He didn't necessarily set up a lemonade stand on Newell Avenue where we grew up in Muscatine, but somehow that stuck in my mind that working for myself is a good thing. Doing business is a good thing. What type of business? Not a clue. But yeah, so I guess I don't have a lemonade stand per se, sitting there selling lemonade and cookies, but being in business, seeing my parents in business and the grandparents in business, sort of had that track in my mind.
Okay, yeah. Good. So you came to the U.S. when you were 8?
11. So left Guyana, South America, I was 8, lived in the Virgin Islands for 3 years, Tortola, and then at age 11, we came to Muscatine.
To Muscatine.
Yep.
Okay. And I know your startup story for your company was started in the 90s, and as I was kind of getting ready for this, I was thinking, as I was doing small businesses and starting things at that time too, we didn't call ourselves entrepreneurs. That wasn't really a buzzword, and startup community initiatives like Startup Grind and things like that really didn't exist. So kind of two things. What drove you to ultimately then start your business, and what kinds of support or things did you have available when you started?
And the second part of the question, what was available in Muscatine? We had a chamber that existed, but there's no, I don't remember having SCORE available or Small Business Association available. But I do remember attending a seminar class at Musser Public Library upstairs, and they were talking about people, how to start a business. I went to that to try to learn how to start a business. No clue how to do that. And what I had was a lot of people saying, oh, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. Oh, somebody else is doing that. Oh boy, this is going to be a challenge. So there was really no support except the family. And then why I wanted to get in business, and the type of business we want to get into is we didn't have very much money. I didn't have any money. But to get into business, do business, you need money. You need the capital to start it. So we were able to try to see that there's a type of business out there called freight forwarding that require very little capital. You needed a copy machine, you need a telephone, fax machine, and that's about it, and knowledge. And so my dad had a friend in Toronto that had a freight forwarding company. So, we asked him, hey, would you teach me how to do this? And he said, yeah. So I went to Toronto, and day one, we drove up there 12 hours. Next day, went to the office to learn how to do the work. And one day of work, the next day, I was up and at him saying, this was easy. And that was just the bug that got me. So every morning is like the guy from Dunkin' Donuts. If you're old enough, you may know Time to Make the Donuts commercial. So that's how it, even this morning, it was for me time to make the donuts. Hopped out of bed at 6:15, and that's what, some 19 years ago. So I fell in love. It was easy. That was the whole thing. I found something that was easy to do. I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to study about it. I didn't have to analyze. I didn't have to find a chart to figure out how to do it. I just did it. I call it common sense. So I was very fortunate to find a job or a business that was common sense. It didn't need much capital because I didn't have any. I was single, so there was nobody to support. And we can run the business at any location. So we started out of our basement at 848 Newell Avenue. So that's the genesis of Joseph Industries. It was just an idea of, okay, we can do this. Let's go find a customer. So I learned in Toronto how to do it, worked in Chicago for about 4 years, got a license, FMC, Federal Maritime Commission, licensed you for this type of work, and came back home, sat in the basement, read Inc. magazine, how to do business for about a month, and then decided to go knock on doors.
So tell us about how you said, well, I had to find a customer. Tell us about how that experience went.
Finding customers, boy, it's about networking and relationships. Who you knew at church, who you knew at the bar, who you knew there, here, anywhere. You ask, hey, do you know anybody ships? Do you know anybody ships? Do you know anybody ships? Yeah, exactly, that's what it was. And then somebody says, Musco does, McKee Button does, Prime Mover does. Oh, and then we also looked at the state, and they had a book of exporters, and we sort of thumbed through the book. When I say we, my dad and I, thumbed through the book, and oh, here's an exporter that's close by. I could drive there, in DeWitt, or Durant, or Iowa City. And that's how we created the prospecting list for customers.
Who's your first customer? Can you share that?
Sure. First customer was BT Prime Mover. We had a shipment from Muscatine to Johannesburg, $906. I made $0. That was my first shipment. I was just happy to have a shipment, happy to do it correctly. I could care less about the profit at that point in time. But I figured if I did it right, I may have a second one. Yeah, so I still remember the exact shipment, the dollar amount, and the destination.
19 years later, I know BT Prime Mover has
Toyota,
changed. Now the Toyota, it's part of, God, now why am I drawing a blank out on the
Highway 38, yeah.
They still a customer?
Unfortunately, no. They moved most of their forklift production to, I think, upstate New York. So that's where most of their work is being done. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So those are the early days. Bring us to 2016. What's transpired from those days to today with Joseph Industries? Tell us about your
Sure. When we started, it was just me, myself, and I. I did all the sales, all the bookkeeping, anything else, copies, phone answering. That was it. Now, I joke with my staff that I don't know why I'm really there. They do all the operational stuff. I have to do all the oddball things. So work has gotten to a point where I don't have to do the operations. I do want to do the operation. I love it. I love solving problems. Transportation, logistics problems, that's just what I love to do. I do not like accounting problems. I do not like state problems. I don't like non-business stuff.
it's a good thing that lady showed up.
Yeah. She'll keep me honest.
That's Tony's wife.
Yeah. So what's changed is that we have staffing that can do the work that we've trained. We have a bigger building to let us grow and showcase our work. So when customers come, who are our customers are mainly corporate customers, so we want them to be proud of their vendors. When they come visit us, we want to have a good area to receive them, or a conference room, so they're proud of their vendors, that, hey, we're working with a world-class organization. So that took a long time to get to that, because you have to decide, what do you want? Do you want to keep plugging in money back into the business, or do you want a nice showcase building? And for many, 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 many years, it was putting money back into the company. We have a philosophy of not being in debt. So it's easy to go to the banks, and the banks love you to go to the bank, and you can have a revolving credit, $20,000, $50,000, whatever you want. But you got to pay a fee to the bank. Maybe my banker friends who will listen to this on YouTube later is going to hate me, but this is how our business philosophy is: not to be in debt, not to owe anyone, to take our money, use our own money, not to pay the bank an interest every month, because that to me is profit given away. So we kept piling back the money. Slow growth. We also took a very conservative approach to business. Instead of trying to reach every single Tom, Dick, and Harry for shipments and say we get 30% of it and lose 70% of them, we decided not to take that approach, the shotgun approach. We decided to focus on one potential customer at a time. So our fear was we get too big, we have to go borrow, we stretch ourselves. And if you read Inc. magazines and these business magazines says you grow too fast, you fail. So this was a fear or something we had in our mind not to do. And it was a constant reminder not to do that. So we went one customer at a time. And so that's our philosophy. We want to find a customer who wants our service, who appreciate our service, who doesn't mind paying for the service. That's a critical piece of what we do is instead of just saying, hey, here's our price, take it or leave it, or go to a big company and say, oh, I've got a huge company company that everyone recognizes, but you only make $1. That is not business. It's pride to say you have a big company as a customer, but you don't make any money off them, and they beat you up every day. I'd rather have a small company that's willing to pay me the money for me to do the job for them to make them grow. And if we can make them grow, then we grow. So that's sort of been our philosophy.
Cool. Where's your competition come from?
Competition in the freight forwarding world is all over. Chicago, New York, LA, London, Shanghai. There's companies all over the world that does what we do. What makes us different is the quality of customer service. So our competition could be in the Quad Cities, Des Moines, Chicago, and that's currently where it's at. I don't think we have another freight forwarder in Muscatine, but technology is changing so quickly that in the old days you had to be at the ports, at the airport or the seaport to do what we did, because a steamship line would give you paperwork called bill of lading, and it would be an original document. This was before fax machines or FedEx or courier services, and you had to physically run it from one building to the next. And then the fax machine came and technology changed, and then email came. So now I could be virtually anywhere and do what I do. So it's about customer service. So my competition is all over the world right now, and so every day you have to keep being aggressive and focus on your customers.
So likewise, are your customers from all over the world as well, or are you primarily
we are
local, Eastern Iowa?
Local. We have East Coast and some South customers. We have customers in China and elsewhere. We're trying to develop markets there that wherever the manufacturers are, that's where we need to be to help. And maybe we don't have a physical office in Shanghai, but we have agents that represent us there in Qatar and everywhere in the world, Europe. Yeah. So if there's a shipment that needs to come to Muscatine, we have agents there in Germany to here, or vice versa. So the world is pretty small when it comes to our office.
Okay. So you talked about your first customer, mm-hmm. and you mentioned a little bit about building a new building here recently. Mm-hmm. Tell us some of the other milestones that you've had. We were talking earlier. You said you don't necessarily look back, so I'm going to push you to go back over the 19 years. What are some of the key milestones?
Well, milestone number one is starting the business. That is, it's one thing to say you want to start a business, and a month later after you said you started a business, so you're still in business. So milestone number one, that's the starting. Then the second one was leaving our basement, and we had an office for the longest time on 119 Sycamore, right in the corner here on the 4th floor. We had the penthouse suite, Dr. Bark's building now, and that's that was a big milestone. And then hiring a employee that's still with us was a big milestone. That first employee is a big one. Someone you could trust to do the work you do every day. That was a big one. Moving to Cleveland Street, that's why our locations are critical, because every time we moved to a different location, we got bigger. And so if in looking at milestone, if you're looking at it from that sense, every time we move, we got bigger. And I'm hoping we have to move again. That means we're growing. So right now we have some space to grow, but those are the big milestones: is moving out of our home, getting the first employee, growing the business with that employee, and to where we are today.
Okay. How many employees do you have now?
Joseph Industries have 10.
10.
Yeah.
Counting yourself?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't even think about that. Yeah. Yeah. I've got to count 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah.
Okay. So for milestone, we talked about milestones. What about challenges that you faced over the years?
Challenges. Plenty of those. Some of the biggest challenges is not necessarily in the freight business, but it's in the human resources side of things, and having quality staffing to do the work to represent you to their customers. So if your customer calls in, I remember customers used to call in, never want to talk to anybody else but me. And to get customers to talk to the staffing, to people who know who's doing the day-to-day was a big step. That was a challenge to get people to talk to the guys in the office who actually do the work. Challenges always, sometimes for us it's been, how do we have enough money without borrowing to run the business? And that is always an ongoing look at the cash flow. Do we have enough to pay? Because we don't want to be looked at as a small-time vendor to some large corporations. You can come across that way, and all of a sudden somebody's going to decide, oh, they're too small for us. They can't do what we want them to do, the image. So it's very important for us to, if we have to pay a bill, that we figure out how to pay it without bothering our customer to do that. And that's a big part of the business, is that because you cannot be small if you want to grow. And because image, people judge you, on how your business look, or your business cards look, your letterhead, your website, and so it's unfortunate, but you have to get past that and then to prove yourself. So those are probably our big challenges. I'm trying to think what else that's a huge challenge. In the logistics side of things, a big challenge is last week, 2 weeks ago, the shipping line went bankrupt. Hanjin, 7th largest shipping line in the world. We unfortunately had a container on one of those ships. And we tried to keep it from getting on the ship. Somehow it got on the ship, and then our venture and luck, that one ship was seized by the fuel company. I think they used the word arrested. It was in the newspapers. So we're still waiting to get clarification how we're going to get our container off that ship. So that's a challenge, because my customers' products on there, and they've got to go to Japan with it. And we don't know how we're going to do that yet. So, So we got to figure that out. Welcome to my world.
Yeah. Okay. So talking about challenges then for others in the room is, as we're part of the thing that we're doing with Startup Grind and some of the other things in Muscatine is to build this startup community. People in the room are looking for, they've either started or they're thinking about starting, and what do you see as key components to this startup community thing that we're growing, and how you've either overcome challenges or at least dealt with challenges, and how can we as a startup community learn from that, help each other?
The first thing I would start with is the individual. Do not get into business unless you have a crazy passion for it. And I mean over the top passion for it. If you're like lukewarm, I want to do a business to make a chair, or it's a hobby, don't even go there. The headaches you're going to have, it's not worth it. You've got to be so over the top excited about it. So 19 years later, you wake up in the morning, time to make the donuts, and I want to go to work. If you're jet lagged to no end, you've got to be in that position first. Then these other things that we talk about, you guys were talking about, around you to support you, Startup Grind, small score, the chamber, these types of things are necessary. But if you don't have that passion to do whatever you're going to do, 24/7, 7 days a week, 365. Don't even go into business. I said, go work for someone, enjoy life. It'll be much better. But if you do have that passion, you need to talk to other people who start a business. So this is a perfect forum. Talk to SCORE. They have these retired people who have gone through everything. A friend of ours told me that a lot of retired people like charcoal. When you have dark hair, you're okay, but when you have gray, that's when the charcoal is the best. It has all this experience to give to you. That's what I see SCORE as. The chamber houses that. But I also see you need young entrepreneurs, people who are just starting out to talk to them. Hey, am I having this kind of problem? Because technology is changing, business is changing. I had to deal with fax machines when I started. Thank goodness I don't have to deal with telex, but faxes. But now everybody's dealing with scanned documents and email and virtual reality stuff, So it's changing. So you need to talk to young people who are also in the business world. There's certain business thing that never changes. Dollars and cents. You add 1 and 1 is equal to 2. That doesn't ever change. That's your profit, right? If you have an input, an output, you're gonna have a difference and a plus side. That doesn't change, but how you go about things. Knowing your regulations in your industry is critical. Knowing what the state of Iowa has for you in terms of sales tax, how you have to register. And I haven't found a nice clearinghouse place yet that I can go to and says, I'm gonna start a retail business. How do I do it? How do I get my sales tax permit? I had to go Google and find it, search through all, navigate here and there to find it. Sometime by luck, sometime somebody tells me. But that's probably the biggest challenge is, how do you, if you start a business that has to sell something, how do you do that? You can start a business, how you have to, if it's a service business, what's the rules? So, and if you don't have money to hire lawyers to tell you all this stuff, it's rough. So like interstate commerce, there's no sales tax on that. So for me, I was happy. Then we opened a pack and ship store. All of a sudden, we have to learn about sales tax and all these other things that we have to collect for the government and do. And so that's probably the downside of it. But if you can find somebody who can put all this stuff together, pack it or links even. Hey, if you want to do this type of business, click on here. You can have a list of stuff. That would be helpful.
Okay, so your pack and ship store that you mentioned, the new building that you opened has been 2 years now?
This is 1 year.
1 year.
Yeah, this week.
Oh,
yeah,
awesome.
yes.
Great.
Anniversary.
So you're talking about that's that's retail, and that's not what your business was founded on.
No.
So why go into the pack and ship retail business?
Well, let's take the second half of that word, ship. Joseph Industries is, just so maybe we didn't clarify what Joseph Industries is. So the best way to describe my work, Joseph International Freight Service, is a travel agent for freight. So if you think about that for a second, right? You go to Expedia, you go to Orbitz, or a traditional travel agent, you tell them what you want, where you want to go, how much, when you want to go, you want an aisle seat, you want all this stuff, how long you stay. Basically, that's what we do for freight. You've got a container needs to go to London. We come back with pricing, 3 different options, 4 options. You pick one, and then we ship it. Then when you get to the overseas destination, you got to go through immigration first and customs. Well, we do all the paperwork because the freight doesn't talk, right? So we do all the paperwork to talk for the freight. So commercial invoice will say how much money you have in your pocket. Packing list tells you what you have in your suitcase, right? And you can get through customs that way. So that was that. So we knew how to do shipping. That's not a problem. So we thought, we being my father, Angela, my wife, we thought, okay, we can do a complementary business. We'll do a pack and ship business. We know how to ship stuff. That's natural. Big or small, we can ship it. So then we add the packing side. So if people had a glass that they need, a teapot they need to sell to their aunt or their mom, we could bring the teapot in, we'll pack it, and we can ship it. Pretty straightforward. Things are not always as straightforward as it can be, but we are doing well now. It took us a while to understand how the retail market works. Muscatine is a very small market. Our location was sort of hidden next to McDonald's for the longest time. Now being on Park Avenue has really transformed our volumes. Yeah. So, but yeah, we wanted to do something that's complementary. Again, I am a glutton for punishment when it comes to new businesses. I've got a million ideas coming out of my brain every minute. And sometimes I grab a hold of one and it takes me in a direction. So package ship came about, in that direction, and then we are working on some other new things now too.
Cool. Good.
Yeah.
All right. So, reviewing your website and as I've known you over the years, but when I see on your website, you have some very specific things articulated. Integrity, honesty, fairness, compassion, and love. These are the values by which your company pursues its mission. That's directly from your website. Okay, so two things. From a big picture point of view, how is it that those values drive your business?
Sure.
And then the second part, let's do the first one first. And then the second one is how do they drive your day-to-day operations?
Sure. So take those words, right? Wouldn't you want to work with a company that has integrity, honesty? That is our basic driving principle. We, as a company, has to have some value system. We can't cheat people. I don't want to cheat anyone. So I need to have integrity in the work we do. We want to be honest in what we do. We want to be compassionate with our customers. We can't just say, pay up. You contract us, this happen. This is part of life. This is how we, as a company, want to be perceived. So when we sat down and wrote our vision statement and mission statement, that took a long time to do. Rewriting, writing. I'll give a lot of credit to a guy named Mike Van Helle. I used to work at Bandag in Muscatine. He was a corporate trainer, so I learned a lot from Mike. And but yeah, so we wanted to have something that it's also our personality, our family's personality is this. If you don't have integrity, you have nothing. If you don't have a good name, you have nothing. So we plow that into our system. The cool thing about this mission statement we have for the company can be flipped into the individual while they're at work. While you're at work, we want you to be honest. We want you to be compassionate to our customers. We want you to love your coworkers, respect them. This is critical to have an office chemistry that works. When you leave the building, you can take this to your home and to your family and teach your kids these things and have this within your circle of friends. You cannot go wrong with these principles. So this is one reason that we use it so much. It's every day. It's about that for the company, how it operates, how to our customer, how we operate internally, and then what we expect our employees. We try to pass this on to them so their lives could be better. If you follow these steps, follow these rules, or these words, integrity, honesty, compassion, love, really can't go wrong with day-to-day life. We all have challenges, so I see it as going across from the company to the working in the business and to the individual workers.
Nice. All right. Last question. I always wrap up, and then we'll open up for a Q&A with the crowd. Two-parter. What's the worst part about being an entrepreneur, and what's the best part about it?
That's a tough question. And maybe the editing, I'll have to edit and put some more answers for me. But tough, the hardest thing right now?
Hardest part. Or the worst part.
The
Maybe
worst
not
part.
The hardest, the worst part.
I would say responsibility for both things. You have a lot of responsibility on your plate, on your desk, whatever, your screen. When a customer gives you product in a container that's $400,000, that's a lot of responsibility not to mess it up, not to put in the wrong ship or book in the wrong ship, not to give them the wrong price, and now all of a sudden their profit margin is going to get squeezed. A lot of responsibility. A lot of responsibility when you walk in and you see your employees and you go, oh boy, I hope we have enough business to pay their paychecks and to keep them here every day so they can pay for their kids to go to soccer or college or buy a new car. That's a lot of responsibility. But on the flip side, I love that. If I didn't have something driving me to do that, then I think I would be dead. So it's both sides. I like the responsibility. The challenges, yes, it's big. A lot of things that carry on your shoulder every day. But I also like the responsibility of that I can do it. After the end of this week, we've sent shipments to almost every continent in the world. We've made enough money to pay everybody. Everything went well. Our employees can get paid. We can get bonuses. That's my biggest drive. How can I get a bigger bonus for everybody who works for us? That excites me, that I can try to figure out how to, if I can do that, guess what? Those guys are going to work even harder next year. And we'll stick to our groove, our rules, and our process, and become better because they like what they do, and they're also getting rewarded. Not everybody's going to be excited about freight forwarding as I am. If not, they'll start their own business. But if you work for somebody, the employer needs to take care of the employee. You need to look at all their all their needs, and you can't give everybody everything they want. Not everybody's gonna make $100,000 a year salary for office work, but you can be fair to them. You can be flexible. You can provide bonuses when they deserve it. And there's times where you have to be tough, and you got to say, hey, you're not pulling your weight. You're costing us money, but you don't have to fire them. You find ways to make them better. And that is responsibility also on my shoulder to try to keep the business growing and growing. Yeah. That's it.
That's awesome. Okay. What questions do you guys have for Tony?
Go ahead.
Got a couple things. Would you say you're employee based when you're dealing with your company? You know what I'm talking about. You keep your employees as happy as you can to drive your business forward.
That's a thin line. Employees are critical.
Yeah.
Without them, you don't have your customer. But without a customer, you don't have your employees. So you have to be very careful in grooming them. Mm-hmm. You can't just I don't think you just throw money at people and say, oh, you're great. You have to earn it. In my world, and maybe I'm traditional on this, you have to earn the raise. You don't get 3% because it's whatever, it's what everybody else is doing. You don't get 5%. Sometimes you won't get no raise if we don't earn it. If your work isn't quite good, we set goals and you're not able to reach them, and we go through the steps, you may not have such a big raise or a bonus. But yeah, it's for me, if our employees aren't good, our service isn't good. So they're critical.
Mm-hmm. And my other thing was, what do you do to keep your employees involved in the company to be, to make them perform better so your customer appreciates your business a little better?
I give them responsibility. This past summer, Angela and I were gone, 9 weeks out of the country. My office is still there. They have responsibility. You don't just dump it on them. It's like you ease. They don't even know they have the responsibility because you ease them into it so much that when you do point it out, like tonight, you're trying to draw reflection, right? When I do point out, hey, do you guys know you did all this without asking me one thing, and I wasn't even in the country? Then the light bulb goes off. Oh yeah, I know how to do that. So this is important that your responsibility is given to them. They feel that and I don't care if people think they own the company, knock themselves out. If customers call and want to talk to them, don't want to talk to me anymore, and that's the case. Now remember, I told you that they never wanted to talk to our workers or our staff. Never. They just want to talk to me. Now they don't even talk to me. I feel bad. I want them to talk to me, say how is it going or anything like that. But no, I just talked to Rebecca, Amanda, Josie. Okay. So yeah, so it's important that you give them responsibility and groom them. You have to. Not everybody comes ready for it. Some people don't want it. We've had plenty of people say, I don't want the responsibility. And you've got to be big enough to say, okay, I'm not going to give you that. We'll groom somebody else for that position. Yeah.
I've got a question. Do you have any stories of when you saw an opportunity and maybe started pursuing it, and then it turns out to be like a distraction? And how do you sort that out?
Recently, I've been doing a lot of distraction stuff. My wife helps me sort it out. A different viewpoint puts reality into place with you real quick. I'm a dreamer. I think every idea I have is a great business idea. Right now I've got 11 of them on my dry erase board. Yeah, yeah. I've got 11 of them. And I want to do all 11 at the same speed I'm doing my current business. But reality check says, are you good at this? Do you know how to do that? You may have a dream. So you need a sounding board. You need a group of advisors. So I didn't mention this earlier, but when we started, my base of counsel was from a group of 3 business people that I sort of handpicked and asked them and begged them, hey, would you volunteer your time as Christian businessmen in the community that are successful can you advise me on how to drive my business? And some of these ideas I have, I didn't create them. People told me, hey, you need to treat your employees this way. You need to do this. You need to set up these controls in your company. So when we started, a guy named Don White, he used to own Goodyear Tire in Mulberry here. Chris Dogg, he's passed on now. He used to be the corporate lawyer at GPC. And I'm trying to think. Don White. John Schwanke, he used to own the radio station. So once a month we sat down and we talked, and I told them what I'm thinking, what ideas I have, and they'll set me straight. They'll say, is that your core business? Do you know how to do that? How are you going to make money doing that? What do you have to outlay? What are you going to sacrifice to get that? So the old adage, a bird in the hands worth two in the bush. You guys know that saying? They always remind you of that. So until you have a very good idea what that business is going to be like, or you're willing to sacrifice. So like for me now, as we've more established, I have some folks who can operate our company. I could then take that time that I would normally operate and focus on new ideas. So that's how I sort it. But counselor advisors, I would highly, highly recommend this because it's worked. Not only for us, but other companies, is to find a core of people you trust that are smarter than you. And most people are smarter than me. So find a banker, find a lawyer, find a marketing person, that have experience dealing with situations, and let them tell you how to do it. Yeah.
So you've talked about growth and you've talked about responsibility. How do you make that decision when you want to kind of take a leap of faith to maybe generate some growth, but at the same time you have to consider the responsibility of what might happen to all the people you're employing?
Yeah. So it's easy when you're small. It's easy when you're not married, you have no kids. Very easy. I'm too dumb to think there's a problem. All I know is that, do I have enough money that I don't have to borrow from the bank? That is, if you can take one thing away, and again, my banker friends are going to dislike me when they see this, but they understand this. If you do not owe the bank anything, you have no stress. And that's what the risk is, right? We have to take a risk. Well, what's the risk? Well, do I get to sleep at night or not? Well, how do you sleep at night? Because you don't owe any money. So nothing's going to go wrong if you don't owe the bank. But if you owe the bank or somebody else money, then you got to figure out, my gosh, how am I going to pay that $1,000 next month or $500 next week? That's stress. My 19 years, I've never had that. I can't explain my hair loss. I don't explain my hair loss, but but that is, if you can figure that out, how not to owe somebody, and these are biblical principles. It just avoids the stress, and you have freedom. You have freedom to risk, because it's not a risk. So you have to eat, bologna sandwich. That's not too bad with mustard and mayo. Okay, you don't have steak yet. But you have a goal. You're working towards something without stress. Stress is the killer of is why people do not want to take a risk, because they're worried so much. But if you don't have that, go for it. And if you have a passion, you'll do it, you cannot fail. No way. No way you could fail. Guarantee it.
Other questions?
All right.
Quiet.
Wow. I put him to sleep.
You did. All right. Well, Tony, if I can get it, we started a tradition a year ago, and now it's a done deal.
Oh, wow.
So we do this for you. My favorite Steve Jobs quote was, "I want to put a ding in the universe."
Okay.
So this is to say thank you for sharing your ding.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Wow. Very nice. I'll go right on our wall in our office.